Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into one of the most epic and foundational stories ever told, the tale of Moses and the great Exodus from Egypt. It's a story of suffering, courage, and the incredible power of faith. So grab a seat, and let's journey back in time. Our story begins in the ancient land of Egypt, where the descendants of Jacob, the Israelites, had settled centuries before. But their new home had become a house of bondage. A new Pharaoh, who didn't know Joseph, rose to power. Fearing the Israelites' growing numbers, he enslaved them, forcing them into brutal labor under the scorching sun. They built massive cities from mud and straw, their backs breaking and their spirits groaning under the weight of oppression. The Egyptians made their lives bitter with hard service. Pharaoh's fear turned to cruelty. He issued a terrifying decree. Every baby boy born to the Hebrews was to be thrown into the Nile River. Imagine the heartbreak and terror that gripped the Israelite families. It was a time of immense sorrow and despair. But even in this darkest of hours, a tiny glimmer of hope was about to be born. In the midst of this horror, a Levite woman gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. For 3 months, she hid him, her heart pounding with every cry. But she couldn't hide him forever. So with a mother's desperate love, she wove a basket of reeds, sealed it with tar and pitch, and placed her precious child inside. She then set the tiny ark among the reeds along the bank of the Nile, entrusting him to God's care. Her daughter, Miriam, watched from a distance to see what would happen. In a twist of fate only divine providence could arrange, Pharaoh's own daughter came down to the river to bathe. She saw the basket, and her heart was moved with compassion when she found the crying baby. "This is one of the Hebrew children," she said. At that moment, Miriam bravely stepped forward and offered to find a Hebrew woman to nurse the baby. And who did she bring? The baby's own mother. So this child, who was supposed to be destroyed by Pharaoh's order, was raised right under Pharaoh's nose in the royal palace. They named him Moses, which means to draw out, because he was drawn out of the water. Moses grew up as an Egyptian prince, educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Yet he never forgot his true identity. One day, he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. In a moment of rage, he struck the Egyptian down and hid him in the sand. When Pharaoh found out, Moses had to flee for his life. He escaped to the land of Midian, a fugitive far from the splendors of the palace. There, he became a shepherd, married, and started a new, quiet life. For 40 years, he tended flocks in the wilderness, the prince now a humble shepherd. It seemed his destiny was lost. But God had not forgotten his people, and he had not forgotten Moses. One day, while tending his flock near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses saw something extraordinary, a bush on fire, but it wasn't burning up. As he drew closer to investigate this strange sight, a voice called out from the flames, "Moses! Moses!" It was God himself. God told Moses that he had seen the suffering of his people in Egypt and had heard their cries, and now he was sending Moses to rescue them. God's mission for him was clear. "Go to Pharaoh and bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses was filled with doubt. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh?" he asked. He made excuse after excuse. He was a nobody, a shepherd, a man slow of speech. But God was patient. He gave Moses miraculous signs to prove his power and promised to be with him every step of the way. He even appointed Moses' brother Aaron to be his spokesman. Reluctantly, Moses accepted the call. He left his quiet life behind and set out for Egypt to confront the most powerful man on earth. With Aaron by his side, Moses stood before the mighty Pharaoh and delivered God's command. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go." Pharaoh's response was arrogant and dismissive. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Not only did he refuse, but he also made the Israelites work even harder, forcing them to gather their own straw for bricks. The people's suffering intensified, and they blamed Moses. Moses' heart was heavy, but God assured him that he would act. This set the stage for a dramatic showdown between the God of the Hebrews and the so-called gods of Egypt. God sent a series of 10 devastating plagues to break Pharaoh's hardened heart and demonstrate his ultimate power. First, the Nile River, the lifeblood of Egypt, turned to blood. Then came frogs, gnats, and swarms of flies. Disease struck the livestock, and painful boils afflicted the Egyptian people. A terrible hailstorm, unlike anything ever seen in Egypt, rained down fire and ice, followed by a swarm of locusts that devoured every green thing. Then a thick, palpable darkness covered the land of Egypt for 3 days, a darkness so profound it could be felt. With each plague, Pharaoh would seem to relent, only to harden his heart once again as soon as the plague was lifted. The 10th and final plague was the most dreadful. God warned that at midnight he would pass through Egypt, and the firstborn son in every Egyptian household would die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh on his throne to the firstborn of the slave girl at her mill. But God provided a way of escape for his people. He instructed each Israelite family to take a perfect lamb, slaughter it, and paint its blood on the doorposts of their homes. When the angel of death passed over the land, he would see the blood and pass over that house, sparing the firstborn inside. This meal, eaten in haste, became known as the Passover. That night a great cry rose up from Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. This final devastating blow shattered Pharaoh's resistance. He summoned Moses and Aaron in the middle of the night and begged them to leave. "Go, serve the Lord as you have said," he cried. "Take your flocks and your herds and be gone." The moment of liberation had finally arrived. After 430 years of bondage, the Israelites, numbering about 600,000 men on foot, plus women and children, walked out of Egypt. They left with the silver and gold of their former masters, just as God had promised. They were finally free, but their journey to freedom was far from over. As soon as the Israelites were gone, Pharaoh's heart hardened one last time. Regretting his decision, he mustered his entire army, chariots, horsemen, and all, and pursued them. The Israelites, now trapped between Pharaoh's approaching army and the vast Red Sea, were terrified. They cried out to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" Moses, however, stood firm in his faith. He told the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then, as God commanded, Moses raised his staff and stretched his hand out over the sea. All that night, a strong east wind blew, and the waters of the Red Sea were divided. A path of dry land appeared right through the middle of the sea, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, escaping their pursuers. The Egyptian army, blinded by their rage, charged into the sea after them. But once all the Israelites were safely on the other side, God commanded Moses to stretch out his hand again. The sea returned to its normal flow, and the walls of water crashed down upon the entire Egyptian army. The chariots, the horsemen, the pride of Egypt, all of it was swallowed by the sea. Not one of them survived. As the sun rose that morning, the Israelites stood on the shore, watching the waves wash away the last remnants of their enemy. They were truly, finally free. Their fear turned into jubilant celebration. Miriam, Moses' sister, took a tambourine and led the women in a song and dance of victory. They sang, "Sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. Both horse and driver he has hurled into the sea." It was a powerful testament to their journey from slavery to salvation, all orchestrated by the mighty hand of God. This story shows us that no matter how impossible our situation seems, God is powerful to save those who trust in Him. Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible story. If you were inspired, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video. We'll see you next time.